but I just wanted to introduce myself to you guys. My name's Dario Spina. I am the CMO of in-house branded content agency called Viacom Velocity. I am also a proud PACE alumnus. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. I know it's late. So I just wanted to give you, thought it would be hopefully a little bit of a good idea to take you briefly through my background from PACE. And the one thing I would say is, when I started at PACE, I was tragically directionless, is how I will describe my entry into this university. And I thought that I wanted to be in international or global finance. Just sounded like a sexy sort of direction for me as an 18-year-old. And what I will say is, a couple of years into my education here, I was floundering with my business classes, to be honest, and I was pulled aside by one of my English professors, and she kindly said to me that I was a pretty good writer, and she thought I had some talent in that space, and so told me that I should really follow that direction. And my initial reaction was, I don't know what to do with an English major, and she told me that if I could continue to convey my ideas well through my writing, the world's kind of my oyster. And that, she changed my life. Her name is Lisa Lowe. She's here today. I wanted to give her a hand for changing my life, so let's give it a hand. So I'll just tell you, always in the back of my mind to thank this person. And so I will say 20-something years later, I contacted PACE to see if I could find the professor who had that conversation with me, and I forgot her name. And I was kindly reminded by someone in alumni relations that my transcripts were so old that they didn't have my college professors' names on the transcripts. So it started me on this odyssey that took several months to find Lisa, and we found her. So anyway, it's a happy reunion for us today that she's here. But anyway, I'll get into a little bit of my background and talk about the culture of proximity. So I am clicking. Okay, so first off, I'm a dad. I have 17-year-old twins. Trying to convince at least one of them to come to PACE. They're seniors in high school, yeah. And have an 11-year-old daughter as well. I'm a Jersey guy born and bred. I've never lived outside of a 15-mile radius. Always wanted to go to school, live in and work in New York City. So post my PACE University education, I like to say I think of myself as a creative generalist. I don't think I'm particularly good at any one thing. I just feel like I'm living between a marketing and strategy existence. So I dabbled creatively in a few areas. Discovered my love for photography here at PACE. Dabbled in screenwriting after a lot of creative writing courses here. Copywriting and advertising. While I was here at PACE, I was leading a double life as a nightclub DJ. There was a 19-year-old club promoter who I met here, and it was kismet. Wherever this guy worked, he dragged me along as his nightclub DJ in town. And then as I started moving along shortly after a few different jobs, I got involved in television and commercial production. So my stage name was DJ Achilles. I recently reconnected with some of the photography, my photography roots, and I got a $35 camera as a gift a few years ago. Anyone familiar with lomography? You are? Yeah, so it's just analog photography, and there's, I was given this camera called the Sprocket Rocket, and basically that's what you're looking at right now. The sprockets are on the prints, and I don't know how to use this camera still, but in a roll of 24 or 36 exposures, maybe I get 4 or 5 prints that actually come out right, but they come out super saturated and a little kind of artistic, dare I say. So I'm always pleasantly surprised by at least 1 or 2 of the prints that come out from the lomography experiments that I do. Early on in my career, I started off in a record business. I worked in the creative department for Mercury Island Def Jam recordings. Worked on artists like Bon Jovi, Vanessa Williams, and Kiss releases. But I got kind of disillusioned and frustrated with the record business because I really wanted to delve into more of a marketing strategy and creative role. So I started taking night classes in copywriting. I wanted to really have my ideas affect marketing campaigns. And I didn't feel like that was really happening in the record business. And so I felt like I could lean on what I thought was a pretty good writing background and have that be the sort of glue that connects marketing and advertising and messaging and branding all together. And that's really the pathway that led me in my career. So about 18 years ago, I landed at Viacom after one 15-minute interview, and I started out at MTV Interactive, coming up with kooky stunts and promotions for MTV.com, and then I transferred over to TNN, which was the Nashville network, and I was working on stunts and promotions for TNN, and eventually that channel became Spike TV. And so I was the marketing guy there that helped launch Spike TV, worked my way through that channel, became the head of marketing for Spike. And then over the last, I would say, 10 years of my life, I've been more Madison Avenue facing in my career at Viacom. And so most recently, about 4 years ago, I worked on a plan to launch an in-house branded content agency that we call Viacom Velocity. And essentially we work on integrated marketing campaigns, social media campaigns, custom creative to help our sales guys sell, because right now marketers are not just buying 30-second commercials anymore solely on TV, or banner ads anymore solely online. They want kind of 360 marketing campaigns that we work on, what I'll call across all screens plus social for them. I don't know what slide's coming up yet. So, all right, so this is really what I like to think of as part of my career, is creativity, curiosity, and collaboration is really what fuels me. I like coming up with ideas and then working with a cross-section of different people, different departments to help bring concepts to life. I do believe that collaboration is what makes ideas really a lot bigger and better, and also allows them to fly well in media. So I would say about a year ago, we created this team called the Velocity Culture and Creative Insights Unit. And that team was really filled with a bunch of folks who had a lot of strategy, insights, and cultural backgrounds. So the first assignment I gave this team was a study on culture. I'm just going to blow through this for a second. And it's a little off center, but the assignment really was to take a look at culture and study what's affecting the shaping of culture currently. And so we started off with this thesis that in generations past, culture was really shaped by kind of a top-down driven process, right? Big media companies, news organizations, celebrities were kind of creating content and spewing it down to the masses. So like I said, it was a very top-down driven approach. But we feel like your generation has a lot more control and a greater hand in shaping culture. And we felt that fans were really affecting what was going on in not only pop culture, but in culture in general. And so we really want to have this Culture and Creative Insights team have a finger on the pulse of what's happening with youth culture to help provide strategy and insights into fueling our ideation for marketing partners. And so as we started to see some of the initial findings of this Insights project, we saw that fans, big brands, news organizations, celebrities were acting like each other in shaping culture, and also getting closer together in terms of those constituencies actually reaching out to each other. And so the study is called The Culture of Proximity, and along the way we decided to make a documentary film about the study called The Culture of Proximity. And so with that, I'd like to introduce you to The Culture of Proximity. I think we have to do a quick switch to roll the film. But we're going to do that. We'll have a quick discussion, if you'd like, about the film, and then we could talk about career paths post-Pace University, if you guys are interested. So let's take a look at The Culture of Proximity, if we can.
Word to be using at the moment. How close are we to certain things? How close are we to culture? How close are we to one another?
Being a culture of proximity just means, well, everything we want is right here. Every person that we want to communicate with, we have access to at all times.
Culture is art. Culture is food, it's music, it's location, it's geography. It's really just humans doing what they do in the proximity of one another, and what happens when we're all together.
Distance, borders used to separate us from one another, as well as culture. Today, those barriers have been falling, they continue to fall.
We are closer than ever to people that we don't even know. You might stumble across opinions or people who are far-flung across the world. In that way, I feel like we are closer together.
People could have told you anything about me, and that's all you had to go off of. But now it's like, nobody can say that. You can visually see who I am. You can see somebody's DNA.
Proximity means being close. Like, you feel lonely if you're left out of that loop.
If it weren't for Instagram or Snapchat, there would be no conversation starter for like the next day.
Proximity has allowed me to see the world differently, and not only just the world, but the way people think about the world. Like, that is important to me, that it has fundamentally changed my understanding of how people process the world. That wasn't the way I read that. That wasn't the way I saw that. That wasn't the way I experienced that, and I'm thankful that I was in proximity to your thoughts.
We're always right here with everyone and everything at all times, which is exciting and terrifying at the same time.
We're seeing each other with technology between us, with data between us, with inequality between us, with our pasts between us. When we talk about proximity, I don't think we're further away or closer to one another than we ever were before. It's just what separates us and what connects us is changing quite radically.
In the past, proximity and a feeling of closeness or connectedness have been one and the same. Now we have proximity that may be disconnected from that feeling of closeness. That's pretty crazy. I mean, that's a really different society than the one that we've been living in. And I don't think we've really come to terms with what that could look like going forward.
Okay, so this is you, your little line. Here are maybe your family and your close friends, and we can call this close culture. So what you have is a bunch of small communities. But then there's something else that all of these people were a part of. And we can call that a mass culture. This is what the celebrities are saying, what the newspapers are saying, what the politicians are saying. We all could hear that stuff. We all could see that stuff, right? So we all participated in this, but we didn't participate in an active, interactive way. It was a one-way concept, right? So mass culture would project down to all of these close cultures. Then came the last 20 years and we developed the internet. Now these people have a way to talk together, even if they don't live in the same place. And we can call this a crowd culture, kind of a national discourse. The crowd culture is very powerful, and the people who run the mass culture can hear it. What happens is the crowd culture helps to inform the mass culture, but there's something else as well. You are hugely into comic books, okay? And that you just kind of enjoy that alone. But now, just say that person enjoys comic books, and these two, and these three over here, and this one, and this guy. The internet gives you a way to find those people. And we can call these deep cultures. There's a very blurry line between a lot of these at this point. They affect each other, they bleed into each other. Any one person can kind of jump into the crowd culture, for example, which can then influence the mass culture. These things are all very close together suddenly. And what we can kind of call that is this new general big idea of a culture of proximity.
This is Yes Jules. We're doing aux cord wars. We are looking for two people to hop in the car, take over the aux cord, and battle it out for a very good prize. Let's see who's here.
I don't really care what you doing. I'm rolling in this Buick, but I'm losing my mind with Yes Jules and probably mapping out my next move.
Get a little cash and fall back. I was like, just trying to scrap up money from my paychecks from the clubs to go rent a venue and pay a DJ, get sound, whatever. Got to a point where people in Toronto were like, oh, bring this up to Toronto. We're like, oh, you gotta do this in LA. And we're like, oh shit, we just branded a party. When you're in it, you don't realize that that's what's happening. And then when you speak to somebody and they're like, oh, you got 2,000 people to come somewhere in 3 days, no big artists or anything, it was just your name on the flyer. All right, well, we got this much money for you to come over here next time. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So I guess I'm a brand now.
So what happens when we have such a close proximity to one another is that regular social media users, celebrities, and brands start to take on and inhabit the traits of one another.
There has been this sense that brands are meant to be your best buddy, that brands are meant to be like people and behave like people.
The future does not fit in the containers of the past. We have in our mind certain containers, those are blowing apart. So what a brand is, what an entertainer is, and what an individual is different. And if you sort of look at people's Facebook feeds, they're trying very hard to curate their day so that they will entertain me, and therefore I will think of them as a brand.
This is Connor.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Liza coming at 2, because it's my second channel.
I'm definitely a brand. I'm a brand even if I didn't want to be a brand. If you're a figure, you're a brand. You know, your name is your brand. Your integrity is your brand.
Today's performer is kind of a hybrid. We're not just performers anymore. We're also kind of marketers, and we're also kind of ad people, and we're also we're our own PR people to a degree, and we have to tick so many boxes in order to create this sphere that reaches people on various platforms.
Saul, you're famous online.
I'm Susie and I love to ride bicycles. I'm Tommy and I love soccer. I'm Saul and I have crippling paranoia.
There's an idea between brands that we're used to thinking about from big businesses and brands around people. There's like a parity there now. Why? Because, well, 50 years ago, you as an individual couldn't film a TV ad for yourself and then distribute it to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of households. Today, you can.
Things that have historically had audiences and individuals who have never had an audience are trending toward one another.
Well, we're definitely in a strange age where people can put themselves into the limelight, make a fan base for themselves without a network, without an agent.
I mean, these are like 14, 15, 16-year-olds. Most of them actually say like, oh, I want to be an internet star. There's this perception of like the accessibility of it. And most of them have channels. Most of them have Twitter accounts. Most of them, I mean, they're actively creating content on their own.
YouTubers that make it, I think at this point, we have to call them celebrities. They're invited to award shows. A lot of them make it onto movies, into TV shows. It is encouraging to know that these people just had a video camera and started doing some silly skits, and then now they have a record deal or they're in a movie. It really makes it feel like everyday people can build themselves up.
Many people that pursue sort of a digital career actually started as fans first.
This right here is what I got signed by Tyler Posey. I actually had like a good 2 minutes. He jumped up out of his seat because I told him how much Teen Wolf really meant to me.
Mine says Angel, which represents Castiel from Supernatural, and hers is Hunter, which represents Dean from Supernatural.
This is from an anime called Fullmetal Alchemist that I got with my older brother. It started with a lot of anime. I was very, very into anime back in middle school. These characters that I loved, I had these ideas for stories. I would write a story, share it with maybe 1 or 2 friends, and then it would go into a journal and never see the light of day until kind of started finding the internet. Really, there's fan fiction of anything you want. When a creator puts something out there into the world, I feel like they kind of release their control over it. The fan base kind of ingests it, metabolizes it, and decides what they think is right for it. Fans can be a very, very powerful force.
Can fans control culture? Absolutely. I mean, culture is based off of the masses. I think fans can definitely control culture, and the fans do control culture.
It's the same thing as the kid in the Bronx who first started rapping. And someone else was like, this is interesting, I'm gonna try this, and build upon it, and remix it, and build upon it, and remix it, and build upon it. And what took years and took people who needed access to gatekeepers in order to finally get this to become a part of, culture, now happens so much faster.
There's so many people now who get to decide like what we talk about and how we talk about it and what that looks like and how quickly information spreads, that the gatekeepers have fundamentally changed. If we means the general public, then we are more in control of culture today than we have been before. We live in a context where everybody's a content creator. I think that is a beautiful thing. I think the consequence of it is that everybody's a content creator, which means that there is just infinitely more content. Sometimes this inclination to just consume because it exists, right? It's like why people just eat because there's food. It's like people just like stay online. Sometimes I'm up in the middle of the night like checking Twitter and it's like I'm exhausted, my eyes are burning. I don't know why I'm still awake.
Look, when I'm done with school, I usually check social media. During school, I check social media. Like I use it like almost too often, if that makes sense.
I just really hope that doesn't take over our lives because I feel like it's already taken over my life and I don't really like that, but I can't help it.
We evolved to be primates who interact with a limited number of other primates. We didn't really evolve to make our brands or our beliefs known to thousands or millions of people and to process what those people think about us.
People have realized that you don't really care to hear about the opinion of someone who doesn't like you and just wants to spend their afternoon tweeting horrible things at you. It's easier for you to close yourself off from those people now.
People are curating their lives online. Our social feeds have hyper-distorted reality. If you live your life looking at your particular stream, the danger is that your perception of reality is kind of it's slightly distorted.
At what stage are our minds being colonized by a Facebook stream or a Twitter stream or a Netflix recommendation engine? You know, very much like someone said, if you're getting it for free, you probably are the product.
In the first 24 hours after the election, just in my own social media, I watch people struggle to understand the other side. I watch people struggle to express themselves and why they voted for the person they did, and you know how they hoped that they wouldn't be misunderstood by their friends. And then about 24 hours later, it felt like my feed had been taken over by memes. And these memes were doing the job of signaling, this is who I am, this is what group I'm part of, this is how I feel about the election, and this is what I think of you. I could see a future for us where we splinter into small groups that have language and visual memes that are used to cement and amplify and convey group identity in ways that are not very fluid, in ways that are very fixed.
When the protest started, when I was in the street in Ferguson, I didn't know anybody in the state of Missouri. Twitter was like the friend that was always awake, right? It like became the only way that I could really process everything, that I could always be in conversation with other people. We didn't know each other's names, we didn't know each other's faces, but we knew each other's hearts. And so many of us met each other for the first time in digital spaces, and we trusted each other.
Trust in institutions is measurably pretty low. Trust in media is at an all-time low. If you look at trust in Congress, it's also at an all-time low. What's interesting is that trust in other people might actually be higher than it's been in the past. Think about Uber. There's no licensing. This isn't a taxi. It doesn't belong to a company. It's not regulated by a city, but this car pulls up outside of the restaurant you've just been eating at, and you hop in with some person you've never met before. That requires actually a pretty high level of interpersonal trust. It's not just an Uber, it's an Airbnb, it's an eBay. There are lots of ways in which we're expressing trust for one another that are a little bit surprising.
I've never met anybody from Reddit in real life. And for me, I'm perfectly fine with that because I get what I need, not necessarily from knowing your name, your age, your location, but from hearing things that make me feel a little less alone. I have more genuine conversations with people behind a screen and a keyboard who don't know my name, don't know my face. Sometimes it's not even like I need a whole paragraph saying like, oh, Lauren, you're like the best person in the world, you're beautiful. Sometimes I just need to hear like, me too.
I don't want to have to think about everything I do. I just want to be able to be me and not be afraid. I'm sick of censoring myself. This is just one little part of who I am, and I'm not going to let my sexuality define or confine me.
I think that there is a closeness that exists, or a perception of intimacy that exists within the digital landscape that doesn't exist as much in traditional. I know when I watch Connor Franta, I watch Logan Paul, that they're like one of us. They're talking about the things that we talk about. They are relatable. There is constantly a desire, constantly an interest from a fan base into the intimacy of someone's life. When you're putting yourself on display as the content and they want more of the content, it's really simply they want more of you.
I think celebrities that, like, who don't keep a facade, you feel closer to them.
I feel like I can connect with like famous people more on social media because I could see like what they eat, what their workout routine is, like what they've been doing for the past week, or like sometimes they'll like announce big events that are coming up, like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna have an album drop like next week or whatever.
The way I let my fans into my life through social media is I basically give them like 5 to 7% of my life. It's a thin line of what I share and what I keep to myself, and me and my wife always have a debate about this. He's like, is that a picture that we keep or is that a picture that the world see?
You have access to their Instagram accounts, you have access to their music, but you don't have a knowledge of everything. We finally reached that point in social media where people realize how easy it is to get access to someone if you really want to. And I think that's made people pull back a bit.
If you're like me and you show so much of your life, people feel entitled after a certain point to know what's going on. You know, the constant question is like, oh, so who are you dating? Like this and that, because people want to know because they feel like they're entitled because you let them know so much. And then it gets to a point where sometimes you don't have control. I'm giving any Tom, Dick, and Joe an open door to just come slap me in the face every time I go on my phone.
Just roast our existence.
Oh, I actually got one. My sister's texting me. I'm not responding. You realize that it's using this season. I want to be like, oh, I don't care. Like, I don't care what other people think, but I honestly, like, I do care what other people think.
You know, I compare myself to, you know, celebrities or whatever, and I'm just like, you know, what are they doing? Should I be I should be doing that, or, you know, I should be, you know, posing the way they're posing.
There's always an element of fantasy with social media. Your Instagram photo might look great, but you might have had a really awful time at that party.
I'm like, I have spent an hour proofreading this freaking Instagram caption, like changing the emojis, which emoji like is less like crazy and more just like casual. I guess I censor myself on platforms where I am less hidden behind anonymity.
We have these incredible capacities to track each other's eye movements, facial expressions, body language that help us understand whether what we're hearing is an authentic belief. We lose all of that when we go online. And so we look for new currencies, new tools to help us understand, is what I'm seeing in text form or emoji form or photographic form, is this authentic?
If you're not authentic, people will call it out. I mean, people call out authentic things as not being authentic.
My approach to putting out things on social media is very organic. You know, I don't want it to feel like something that was paid for. Everything should feel believable. The person on the other end is not stupid, you know, and this is what I tell a lot of brands. I tell a lot of companies, I said, listen, you know, that campaign is cool, but you can't, like, nobody's being told what to do anymore.
We see it all the time with our clients that are either in feature films or books. The fan base is like, wow, like there was a moment where it was just you and I, right? We were in a bedroom together, you were talking, I was listening. It was a really intimate, authentic experience. And now you've gone over here to Hollywood, or you're on tour and you're not tweeting at us, and you seem to have sort of elapsed this sort of like smaller ecosystem and intimate relationship that we used to have.
Sometimes people are so busy acting that they're living in other people's minds. And as a result, they've forgotten who they are.
In me being real on social media, I became fake. I started dating this guy, and whatever, I did my hair a certain way. I posted a picture, and people were like, oh, you should go back to like doing your hair like this. And so the next day I changed my hair, and he was like, oh, you didn't like it this way? I was like, no, you know, somebody mentioned in a comment with him. He's like, wow, wish I had that much influence on your decisions. Like, where I need to like go comment on your shit to make you want to do something. And I was like, man, I'm a loser. Like, that's crazy, you know? I'm like listening to these strangers on the internet, and I was like, oh, this guy's right.
I think there's something we as people deeply want in connection that the internet, for all of its triumphs, has only started to deliver. And I think about this a lot in the context of social media for the last decade, which has been largely based around people connecting in a very superficial way. It's a lot of people. It's 1.7 billion on Facebook alone. But we're all basically sharing a specific filtered version of ourselves. The real connection that really drives us as people, that has, since the beginning, is a much deeper connection. Those connections take security, and that takes time.
Just say this is the timeline of history, right? A revolution in electricity. The power is on. A revolution in transportation. We live in a world suddenly where we can fly. This would have seemed unbelievable to someone over here. This last century, we started developing the concept of computers. So now we live in a world with computers. That very quickly turns into a world with the internet. Smartphones, ubiquitous virtual reality. A really intense amount of artificial intelligence. That's like this. The shape of this curve is intense. It's an exponential curve. Suddenly, we're getting to a point where you maybe even 5 or 10 years in the future, you would go to there and you'd be unrecognizable to you. It would be so different. We're moving to a world where we have genuine superpowers, things that people in the past would think are complete magic. The thing is, we're still human beings. Behind all the technology, we're still a bunch of biological humans with all the good things and bad things that come along with that, with our tribal instincts, our ability to hate, and our instincts of empathy and altruism and our ability to love. And both sides of that are still here, except now both sides of those have superpowers.
It feels like the internet's been with us for a long time. It feels to many of us like we've always been on social media. It also feels like social media is all about us. You know, it feels like we're in a world of greater and greater personalization, where the things that I like, the things that matter to me, influence what I'm going to see in the future. But really, we're in the very early days of the algorithms that make those decisions for us online. I would hope that with repeated proximal interactions, with repeated proximity, we feel like we're more a part of each other's lives. We care more. We find new ways to express that may be impoverished right now, but could develop over time. And I really hope that that's our future.
You're no longer singled out. It's like, oh, there's that one weird kid that likes this thing. But now it's like, you're never the only person that likes something. Other people feel the same way and have been changed the same way by something that's not real, but it has real effects on people.
People are taking advantage of the opportunity to live in a cultural bubble of people who are like-minded, and you don't have to take in cultural conversations from other people who you don't like.
It's empowering, and it's like a hammer. You can like bash someone's head, and you can use your anonymity to, you know, just wreak havoc, but you can use a hammer to build a house too. You can, you know, do good.
I think proximity to the truth is about closeness, is about a recognition that there is something similar about our situations. That when I think about a culture of proximity, to me it is saying that, like, I see you.
And we know that Generation Z, you know, that kind of younger than millennial, they're not just digital native. Digital kind of predates them. That's the first generation that'll be like that. They perceive injustice differently, and they fight for different causes, but they also understand what has happened around them. They understand that their parents might have been affected by the recession. They understand that their living standards aren't going to be maybe the same as their parents. They understand that maybe society needs them. They're maybe the nicest generation that there has ever been. That's exciting. That's interesting. And that's what's radically going to change.
everyone. We're so excited to share this with you guys today. We actually just released it 2 weeks on YouTube if you want to share it out further. My name is Maya Peterson, and I'm the Director of Culture and Creative Insights at Viacom Velocity, and I had the honor of working with Dario Spina on this project, and it was our first big project for Velocity as part of a team that tracks cultural shifts and tries to understand and uncover a deeper audience insight that we share both with our partners in the marketing community and with Velocity, our in-house brand studio. So now I'm going to bring back on the stage Dario Spina, our CMO. And then we have Tasha Ross, who is the Senior Manager on the HR Campus to Career team at Viacom. In her role, welcome Tasha. In her role, she manages college and diversity partnerships as well as post-grad development programs and internships for advertising, sales, content distribution, and for MBAs. And finally, I would love to welcome Lora, who is a proud PACE alumni. She graduated just 2 years ago. Lauda is originally from the Dominican Republic, and she left her home country to pursue a BBA in marketing communications here at PACE. And since then, she's been working with us at Viacom Velocity in the role of a social media analyst. So we're going to have a conversation about creativity and marketing and working at Viacom. So I'm going to go over here to do that.
Give it up for Maya.
Come on, Maya. All right. Oh, for me? Okay. Welcome, guys. So I'm going to start with you, Tasha.
Okay, I'm on the hot seat.
So when you're looking for people to work at Viacom, how do you find people with such creativity and marketing and strategic ideas?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to start off by saying, any PACE students here? Thank you, great. Okay, this makes me feel better. I didn't see a lot of you earlier today in some of the sessions, so I'm excited to see that you're all here. We actually have a very close relationship with Pace University. We've done a lot of campus recruitment. We actually were on campus on Monday doing some on-campus interviews. So we do a lot of work with you all, inviting you to campus. And we've done some career fairs in the past. We've also done some on-campus info sessions and also in-house info sessions. So we have a really great relationship with the school. But with all of our partner schools, our goal is really to, we need to evacuate? Is everything okay? Okay. I don't know all the sounds. So yeah, I think for us, it's really, first of all, I want to promote our spring internships are live. Our application is open, and we are looking for spring interns. So for those of you who are looking for spring internships, you're currently in your junior or senior year, you are eligible to apply. But we're always looking for students, and we always have opportunities, fall, spring, and summer. And I think we're just looking for the strongest candidate, and I'll talk a little bit probably later on about some of the things that we look for, but we do a lot of activities and events with our partner schools. PACE is one of them, and that may be specific info sessions, panels, career fairs. It really varies depending on what we're recruiting for, whether it's an internship or a full-time opportunity.
Cool. Dario, you went to PACE, and now you're at Viacom. What about PACE sort of like prepared you for your career that led you to Viacom?
Well, I touched on the story earlier where I was struggling with my major, my academics, until my English professor pulled me aside and told me to lean into writing, and I don't know if she's finally made it into this room. Is Lisa in here somewhere?
She's coming.
She's on her way in. Oh, here's Lisa walking in right now. Give Lisa
Grand entrance.
So that's the woman that changed the course of my life. I did feel like I could maybe communicate better in written form than I can, obviously, in public speaking. And so I always felt that I could work in commerce creatively as opposed to just maybe editorially. I never saw myself as sort of a novelist. I was dabbling in screenwriting, but I felt like I could always be a part of sort of marketing and commercial messaging. And once I latched onto the creative writing lane. I had a minor in advertising as well, and I felt like that started me off on this path of marketing and advertising and creative ultimately, but I didn't feel like I was really at home in my career until I actually landed at Viacom, so that was a little later in life in my career. And my background was in sort of stunts and promotions, and when I started at Viacom in a job there, I felt like my creative writing abilities, my concepting, and my executional abilities were brought to home at Viacom.
Nice. And Laura, you're a recent graduate.
Yeah.
I know you're excited to be back at Pace, and
very excited.
As Dario mentioned, Velocity is the in-house brand studio, but just to give people a little bit more context about the different roles that you can have within Velocity, can you share with us what you do?
Yeah, so I first started at Viacom Velocity as a MTV integrated marketing intern. I fell in love. I had actually been doing a bunch of different internships, but MTV integrated marketing definitely was where I fell in love. And luckily that internship turned into a job, which was awesome. I was that eager beaver intern that was like right away asking for a job opportunity, and it worked out, thankfully. But now, as a social media analyst for the marketing department by Viacom Velocity, what I do is track the effectiveness and virality of any social media campaigns that come out of Viacom.
Cool. Did you have any classes at Pace that you took that you felt like prepared you for that, or was it just like overall the career service office here?
I'm gonna say that it was a combination for sure. From courses that I can think right now, I would say marketing research. I know sometimes it's hard for marketing students to see themselves in a more analytical or numbers-driven job. As a student, I never thought that was where I was gonna end up, but I did. So thank you to my marketing professor and research. And in terms of the Career Center, my resume I submitted to the Pace Career Center, and that's how I actually got invited to a Viacom recruitment event and how I got my internship at Viacom.
Nice. So one of the pathways into media and entertainment is HR, like as a functional role. Like how did you start your HR career, and how did you pick Viacom?
Yeah, so I've been with Viacom for almost 4 years now, and I started my career, so let's go back, 15 years. I started off working in entertainment, and then decided I really wanted to work on I wanted to work with students, young people, and I decided to transition my career from entertainment to academia, and actually worked as a career counselor for a number of years on different college campuses, working with film students, art and design students, helping them get acclimated and jump into the entertainment industry, helping them find jobs and internships. And then I kind of missed entertainment. So this was a great opportunity for me several years ago to kind of come back to entertainment and still be able to work with young people beginning their careers, but still be more a part of the industry. So this has been a perfect blend of all of my interests. And it's so exciting to be a part of people kind of embarking on their careers, getting their first job, their first internship, and being a part of that process and watching them grow and develop in the company and saying, I was a part of their path, a part of their career path. That's a real important thing for me, and I think it makes me feel like I've done something rewarding. At the end of the day, I can leave and say, you know what, this person really valued my contribution, and I was a part of their path. So that's been really exciting for me.
Nice. So Dario, Velocity is a huge group. We have 200 and...
Yeah, we're up to 200 people.
200 people.
Yeah.
So in thinking about how you look for new hires and what sort of skills or personal attributes you need to succeed at Velocity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think it's about, I think we're into our 4th year of this department in the building of, and I think it took about a year and a half of coming up with a strategy leading into the launch of Velocity, and working with a lot of different departments to kind of pull together resources for our launch. So initially, we were just looking for kind of marketing generalists that could manage these what I'll call linear, digital, mobile, and social campaigns, and work with sales and clients. It's a pretty complex generalist type of role. And then secondarily, we tried to look for dedicated creatives, so creative directors, writers, art directors, more in the video space, to produce the campaign materials that were needed to make these branded content projects really sing. And then I think the last part was when we kind of annexed and brought up the Culture and Creative Insights group. And so that we were looking for, and we had in Maya and her counterparts, people that have a really great strategy and insights background, but also, you know, culture is a little bit of this amorphous thing. So people who really understood that culture is made up of a number of different constituencies that help affect how it's shaped. And that's like a missing ingredient to our group that we felt was really needed, is that we were just coming up with some ideas or marketing programs, but they weren't founded in any insight. So that's the sort of newest discipline that we're really steeped in. And Lora is now a 2-year veteran of our group, but also analytics and social media programming is another area that we're delving into more deeply.
So Lora, I know like you went to college during an era where social media was the way that people connected to each other on campus and also to people more broadly. So for a lot of people in the audience, I'm sure you have like the ideal role. Can you to be able to work in social media and be so young and like to come up in an era where you're like that's a part of your worldview, can you talk a little bit about maybe what your favorite project has been so far at Velocity?
There are so many. I feel very lucky to be in social media as a millennial because you need to take advantage of that, right? We are the experts in this field, so the media industry really is seeking for your feedback. So never be shy to sit at the table and speak up if you have a really good idea or really good feedback. A little piece of advice there. But then talking about projects, wow. I can't think of one right now, but I will say that my favorite part about working at Viacom is attending the VMAs. That's really
nice.
Cool. Definitely my dream, growing up watching MTV. So I felt like I made it in America when I was watching Beyonce and Rihanna on stage at the VMAs.
Nice. Okay, so you brought up favorite project. What about maybe what's the most challenging part of your job? I'll ask each of you that, then we'll open it up to Q&A for you guys.
I think the biggest thing as a social media analyst is we are constantly compiling a lot of data. So we're constantly looking at numbers, and we want to try to be very insightful when we are recapping the results of any marketing campaigns, but sometimes there are no insights in that in all that data that we capture. So it's hard to tell a story, a data story, when sometimes there aren't strings there. I think that's the challenge right now that we're facing. But when there are patterns and cool things to report on, I get super geeky and excited.
Nice. Tasha?
Okay, sorry, repeat the question one more time.
One of the most challenging aspects of your job, or working in media more broadly.
Yeah, I think from an HR perspective, I think the challenging aspect for me is when I find a great candidate, but I don't have a role available at that given moment. And then I'm like, oh, darn, I don't want to lose this candidate to another company or something like that. So I think a lot of HR is really pipelining, and so that's our little in-house term for basically holding on to you until we have the right opportunity, keeping you warm, connecting with you. So I always encourage people to connect with me on LinkedIn and just like, keep that open line of communication, because with any HR folks that you can connect with in general, I recommend that, because I feel like we may not have the opportunity for you right now, but should you reach out and stay connected, just send a message, say, hi, here's where I'm at, and this is what's going on. I'm like, oh, wow, I have this marketing role. This could be a great opportunity for you. Let me reach out to you. And so I think timing is always that tricky thing with HR. So if I don't have the right opportunity, that's always a challenge for me. But I try to stay connected through LinkedIn and just kind of staying connected with the folks that I've met through events like this and other kind of networking opportunities so that I can reach back out when something does become available. And I always encourage people to stay connected. So when someone you meet at an event says, follow up with me, please do that. They really mean it, especially if they're in HR. They may not have something right then, but something may open up. And we work in kind of a real-time environment, so we recruit in real time, so we can't have like contingent offers. I don't know what's going to be available, in the spring, but I may have the right opportunity for you, so you always want to stay connected with all of your HR contacts in general. So I would say that's probably a big challenge for me.
Great advice for you guys.
Oh my God, that's so good. Wow. Oh, me?
Yeah. It's your turn, it's your turn.
I think for me, it was, somebody told me as I was going through it, particularly in my career phase at Viacom, that a lot of times what happens is you take on these roles, and one of my mentors was one of like the founding fathers of MTV. When I first started at Viacom, he was very intimidating. He was the head of marketing that came up with the actual logo of MTV. His name's Fred Seibert. And I would have to meet with him when I first started at MTV Interactive, and meet with him on a monthly basis and pitch him ideas, and he would kill 99 out of 100 ideas. But the one that he would approve, he would help sort of like Moses kind of clear the Red Sea and all the red tape involved in making things happen. And as you go along in sort of corporate America, a lot of times he said, what happens, Dario, is they're going to promote you out of what you're good at. And so at the time I was producing stunts, and as you go along in your career, you may get overloaded with other responsibilities. Like we have a team now that's pretty big, of 200 people. So with that, there's a lot of like human resources interaction. There's a lot of finances. There's a lot of administrative stuff in addition to managing people. And you start getting away from making stuff, which is what I was working on. So as Maya knows, we got steeped into this culture of proximity project, and I felt like I needed to latch on to a pet project and help be a part of the day-to-day. And lo and behold, it turned out to be an odyssey for us, yeah. Right? And so Maya became a producer, yeah. A documentary producer along the way, and so did I. But my advice is to sort of, you got to hold on to one piece of what you really love to do, at least, in addition to the other responsibilities that you have in your job.
Yeah, that's great advice. And now we would love to open it up to you guys to see if you have any questions for us, either about the film or to individual members of this panel about career opportunities at Viacom or advice.
There's one.
When we saw the video, it was talking about proximity and sometimes how we have closeness, but not the sincerity that we used to have. I mean, it didn't exactly quote like that. But I was asking, one of my big hesitance about social media is I'm being from a country that is not as developed as America. When I came here and joined social media, it was kind of a culture shock. And I had to like totally remove myself, because it was like I had to develop who I was before I got on there. And but now I'm trying to integrate into it. And what is your advice for, like, if I want to work in the media industry, but I am not that well, like, I'm not that good at social media?
I could start.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, if by the way, did we talk about the film being on YouTube?
I mentioned it, but
Yeah. So, you know,
so check it
please, you know, if you like it and share it with your friends or whatever. But I'm not big on social media. Like, if you look me up and follow me, I'll have like 57 Instagram followers. So, I think that part of it is you could still learn about the discipline of marketing and social media without being steeped in it personally, in my opinion. Because I worked on, believe me, a lot of sort of marketing and advertising campaigns for products that I did not love. And I tried to kind of get steeped in the craft of it, the discipline of it. And sure, you get sort of much more satisfaction out of working on projects or brands or stunts and programs around what you're really personally into, but I also like to delve into the craft and how to elevate the creativity of it as well, and maybe distance yourself from the actual personal interaction of it, and that's a challenge.
I would just add to that, like, I look at social media as an anthropological tool to understand people. And, like, I think Twitter is good to understand, like, what the conversation is of the moment, you know, and Instagram, it's all about, like, understanding how people project their identity. But to Dario's point, like, I post maybe once a week on Instagram. Like, I'm not looking to personally cultivate an audience. So I think you just have to have the ability to, like, maybe have a safe distance from it if you feel uncomfortable, and look at it, you know, as a social listening tool more than anything else. You're welcome.
Hi. When it comes to entry-level jobs, I was curious how much it mattered to you whether someone had worked at a network before, or exactly how much experience is needed for someone to have a job at Viacom. And, you know, like, as I'm in my senior year, like, what special skills or certain things can I work on in order to potentially have a future there?
I'm just sorry, I heard part of what you said, but looking for entry-level jobs and what kinds of skills, is that?
Yeah, what kinds of skills, and also, like, how much does it matter if an applicant has worked with a network or if they simply have experience?
So if you had a former internship at the company, we certainly love former interns and we like to give them, you know, some priority, but it's definitely not exclusive. I'm not a former intern of the company when I got my job. I don't know if you were, Maya, but see, so we made it in somehow, so they're definitely open to that. But I think ultimately we're looking for someone who has a strong resume, so you want to make sure that one of the things I was talking about earlier in our brown bag lunch session was typos and grammatical errors, and spell check is your best friend. Like, really make sure, because I know that you probably hear this from your career center, but I have to reiterate it, because you'd be surprised the number of resumes that we get on our desk that have grammar errors in, like, their name or in their education section or in just, like, bullet points or all throughout the actual resume, or maybe errors in the thank you notes that you send after your interview. Those kinds of things are so important. I know of specific examples of folks who didn't get jobs because they had those errors on the resume, on the thank you letter. So I just think really triple checking your work, making sure you followed all the application instructions, and making sure you have a completed application, because then people start to think if you don't, well, maybe they don't have strong attention to detail, you know? So I think those factors are probably the most important. And then, of course, just really making sure that your skill set and your relevant coursework, your prior internships and you know, part-time jobs match up to the qualifications of the job that you're applying to. You don't want to waste a recruiter's time, right? You don't want to have, like, all production experience and you're applying to a research job. I'm just randomly, you probably wouldn't do that, but you know what I'm saying? You want to make sure that your experience is relevant to the jobs that you're applying to. So don't apply to everything, apply to things that are most relevant to what you're looking for. And if there is a relevant correlation between your experience and the qualifications, then a recruiter will likely, you know, follow up with you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Brittany. I'm a student here at Pace University. My question is, I'm curious, how do you guys stay innovative and updated, and digitally specifically, in a constantly changing and evolving technological environment? And is it more based off of the conversation over social media, or is it more specific towards the analytics behind it?
You want me to start and then? That's a great question. Right now, I think the reality is we're working at an entertainment company, and our core competency is really video content creation. And so I think from, sort of informing our technology, informing our content creation via technology, Laura's in a division now that takes a look at how things are performing on social media specifically. So I think that's one big part of it, is we create things, we post, we test, rinse and repeat. Right now, I don't think we have so much intel that we really know when and what to program on a per platform basis. I think the other thing that we're doing is we're using data and insights, and we test with other partners on how we sort of need to move along content creation. So with the most recent VMAs, we tested something in AR with this hologram.
Yes.
Right, you want to talk about that?
I can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was not my particular project, but one of the team members in the Velocity Social Division, that's my team, he does business development and looks for new business opportunities and new business partners. And Hologram was a company that specialized in holographic images and turning those images into an interactive sort of moving animation that we then turned into a Snapchat filter during the time of the VMAs. So we had a lot of participation from fans that were actually spending time on Snapchat playing with the tool. And when we actually measured the social conversation, we saw great success.
I would just add, as we're finding this next person, that part of the reason why we did this project was, to zoom out, to understand culture more broadly, because to your point, it's super fast, it's very noisy, and there's always something new that's happening. So for us, it was about understanding the dynamics at play in culture, helps you sort of like keep up and sort of stay ahead of the trends that happen all the time, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Kaylee. I'm a student here at Pace. I'm in the Arts and Entertainment Management program, and I'm also on the e-board of the Inn, and we'd love to have any of you come speak for our students. It's been really great. So I was just wondering, when you think of some of your best interns, what qualities do they possess, and what was something memorable that they contributed to the Viacom team?
Great. So as far as internships and kind of what we're looking for, I think what's most important is really a strong interest in the media industry and a real knowledge of Viacom brands. That's one of the probably top questions we'll ask in our pre-screen interview on the HR side, is just, what do you know about Viacom? You don't want to say, I grew up on Nickelodeon, because who didn't, right? We all kind of watched stuff growing up on it. You want to really be able to show that you've been following us in the news. You're aware of where we're at as a company and what we've been doing, where we're innovating. I think that's really impressive to our team that's reviewing the intern candidates. And I think someone who really can showcase their relevant coursework, like I referenced earlier, I think that's really important to see what courses you've been taking that are relevant to what you're looking to do. And then also leadership experience on campus, any campus clubs that you're involved in, we want to see that. We love people who are active on campus, who are really taking advantage of their college experience, showcasing their leadership skills. I think that's really great to see on the resume, because we don't have a cover letter opportunity on the internship application. So that's really your one-stop shop, is your resume, to really show showcase all that you have. Because of the sheer volume of applicants we receive on the internship side, it's really just your resume, and then you select your top 2 or 3 areas of interest so we can figure out what's a good match for opportunities we have on the back end. So you don't have a lot of time to really showcase yourself, so you really want to, I recommend all of you go to a career center. As someone who used to work in a career center on college campuses, please use your career centers. Show them your resume, have them take a look at it, and make sure it's formatted great, and you know, they'll give you some advice on that, because the more you can really critique, have several eyeballs on that before you send it to a career, to HR folks, that's going to give you a stronger chance of kind of passing through the system. But yeah, I think it's really important to just showcase your relevant experience, showcase your relevant skill sets, whether they be, you know, technical skills. If you have advanced proficiency in Excel or PowerPoint, reference that, or any social media, you know, platforms, especially on the analytics side. That's going to be really helpful. But yeah, I think really just being very clear about what values you bring to the table, what expertise you bring to the table, and showcasing that in a real strong way, because you're selling yourself at the end of the day. And it really, employers, and I was saying at our table earlier during lunch, that recruiters unfortunately spend about, you know, less than 10 seconds, you know, looking at a resume at first glance. So you really have to grab them to make them look longer. And so you want to make sure you're grabbing them with the right kinds of bullet points, the right relevant coursework, and that sort of thing.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you so much for your attention, for your great questions, and I think we'll be milling around for a little bit, so if you want to grab one of us to ask a question that you weren't able to ask, we are happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.